Imagine losing your job because you decided to help someone in need. That's exactly what happened to Sarah, a hard-working waitress who thought her life was over when she got fired for assisting one of the most famous people on the internet, Mr. Beast. But little did she know, the next day would change her life forever. Sarah lived a quiet, ordinary life in a small town. She worked long hours at a local diner, serving coffee and taking orders from customers who came and went without giving her much thought. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills, and for Sarah, that was enough. She had dreams, of course, like anyone else. Maybe one day she'd open her own little café or travel somewhere far away. But for now, she focused on getting through each shift with a smile, even when things got tough. One Friday afternoon, Sarah was just finishing up her lunch rush duties when a man walked into the diner. He looked like any other customer: jeans, sneakers, a hoodie pulled over his head, but something about him seemed different. He sat down at a corner table and ordered a burger and fries. Nothing unusual there. What happened next, though, would turn Sarah's world upside down. As she brought his food to the table, the man glanced up at her name tag and said, "Thanks, Sarah." His voice was friendly, almost too casual. Then he added, "You know, you seem like someone who deserves good things." At first, Sarah didn't think much of it. People said nice things all the time, it didn't mean anything. But as the man finished his meal and stood to leave, he handed her a folded piece of paper along with his payment. Confused, Sarah opened it after he left. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw what was written inside. "Stay tuned. You've been chosen." Before she could process what that meant, chaos erupted. The diner manager stormed out of the office, furious. Apparently, another employee had reported Sarah for spending too much time talking to the customer instead of doing her job. The truth, she hadn't done anything wrong, but that didn't matter. Within minutes, Sarah found herself standing outside the diner, her apron in hand, unemployed and stunned. She couldn't believe it. All because she'd helped someone, a stranger, who turned out to be none other than MrBeast, one of the biggest names on YouTube. Sure, he'd left her a cryptic note, but what difference did that make? She was out of a job, and her future felt more uncertain than ever. But then, the very next morning, something happened. Something so unbelievable that Sarah never could have seen it coming. The next morning, Sarah woke up feeling defeated. She stared at the ceiling, replaying the events of the previous day in her mind. Losing her job over something so small felt unfair, but what could she do? She sighed, got out of bed, and shuffled to the kitchen to make herself a cup of coffee. As she waited for the water to boil, her phone buzzed on the counter. It was a notification from social media, a platform she rarely used. Curious, she picked it up and unlocked the screen. Her jaw dropped when she saw the message. It was a direct tweet from none other than MrBeast himself. "Hey, at Sarah_Waitress, sorry to hear about what happened yesterday. Don't worry, your kindness won't go unnoticed. Stay tuned. Big things are coming your way." Sarah blinked, thinking it must be some kind of prank. But no, it was the tweet already had thousands of likes and comments. People were flooding her mentions, asking who she was, how she knew MrBeast, and why he was talking about her. Some even accused her of faking the whole thing for attention. Overwhelmed, Sarah set her phone down and tried to focus on making breakfast. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. Later that afternoon, while scrolling through her feed again, Sarah noticed another post from MrBeast. This time, it was a video. Her hands trembled as she clicked play. In the clip, MrBeast stood outside the diner where she worked, holding a giant check. Behind him, a crowd of people gathered, cheering and clapping. "Yesterday," MrBeast began, "I visited this diner to test an idea I've been working on. I wanted to see if random acts of kindness still exist in today's world. And guess what? They do. I met Sarah, one of the hardest working waitresses I've ever seen. Not only did she treat me with respect, but she also went above and beyond to make sure I was taken care of. So imagine my surprise when I found out she lost her job because of it." The camera panned to show the diner's sign behind him. Then MrBeast turned back to face the camera, his expression serious. That's not okay. Kindness shouldn't come with a price tag. So here's what I'm doing about it. He held up the oversized check, revealing the amount $100,000. Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Was this really happening? Before she could process it, the video cut to footage of MrBeast walking into the diner, surprising the staff and customers with gifts, free meals, and donations to support the business. At the end of the video, he looked straight into the camera and said, "Sarah, you deserve better. Use this money to chase your dreams, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise." By the time the video ended, tears streamed down Sarah's face. She couldn't believe it. Just 24 hours ago, she'd been sitting in her car, wondering how she'd pay rent. Now, she had more money than she'd ever dreamed of. But the surprises didn't stop there. As word spread online, Sarah became an overnight sensation. News outlets reached out for interviews. Strangers sent messages of encouragement, sharing stories of their own struggles, and thanking her for reminding them that kindness matters. Even the diner manager called to apologize, offering her old job back. But Sarah politely declined. She didn't need it anymore. Still, despite all the positivity, Sarah couldn't shake the nagging thought that came with sudden fame. What if people started treating her differently? What if they only cared about her because of the money? And most importantly, what should she do next? Just as she started piecing together a plan, her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. Hesitant, she answered. On the other end of the line was a voice she instantly recognized. It was MrBeast. "Hey Sarah," he said warmly. "How are you holding up?" She stammered, unsure of what to say. I'm okay, thank you so much for everything. I don't even know how to repay you." MrBeast chuckled. "You don't owe me anything. Actually, I'm calling because I have another opportunity for you, one that might change your life even more." Sarah froze. Another opportunity. What could possibly top what had already happened? "You'll find out soon," MrBeast continued. "But first, pack your bags. You're going on a trip." And with that, the call ended, leaving Sarah stunned once again. The next morning, Sarah stood outside her tiny apartment building, clutching a suitcase she hadn't used in years. She still didn't know where she was going, or why, but MrBeast had sent a car to pick her up, a sleek black SUV with tinted windows. As she climbed inside, her mind raced with questions. Was this some kind of prank, a publicity stunt, or was he really about to change her life again? The driver didn't say much, just gave her a polite nod before pulling away from the curb. They drove for what felt like hours, leaving the familiar streets of her small town behind. Eventually, they arrived at a private airstrip. Sarah's heart skipped a beat when she saw it. A gleaming white private jet waiting on the tarmac, its engines humming softly. Standing near the steps leading up to the plane was MrBeast himself, wearing his signature hoodie and a grin that stretched ear to ear. "Welcome aboard, Sarah," he called out as she stepped out of the car. She hesitated, unsure if she was dreaming. What is all this?" MrBeast laughed. "You'll see. For now, just trust me." With that, he led her onto the plane. Inside, the cabin was luxurious. Plush leather seats, a mini bar stocked with snacks, and a large screen mounted on the wall. As they took off, MrBeast handed her a folder. "Open it," he urged. Sarah flipped it open, her eyes widening as she read the contents. It was a detailed itinerary for a week-long trip to New York City, complete with reservations at five-star hotels, tickets to Broadway shows, and meetings with some of the biggest names in business and entertainment. But the final page caught her breath. It was an invitation to appear on a major talk show, hosted by none other than Ellen DeGeneres. "I don't understand," Sarah stammered, looking up at him. "Why are you doing all this for me?" MrBeast leaned back in his seat, his expression thoughtful. "Because people like you remind us what's important. You didn't hesitate to help me, even though you didn't know who I was. That kind of selflessness is rare these days. And honestly, I think the world needs to hear your story." For the rest of the flight, Sarah tried to wrap her head around what was happening. By the time they landed in New York, she was overwhelmed, but also excited. Over the next few days, she experienced things she'd only ever dreamed of. She dined at Michelin-starred restaurants, attended red carpet events, and met celebrities who treated her like family. Everywhere she went, cameras followed, capturing every moment for MrBeast's YouTube channel. But the highlight of the trip came when she walked onto the set of The Ellen Show. The audience erupted into applause as Ellen introduced her, praising her kindness and resilience. Sitting across from the famous host, Sarah shared her story, how losing her job had felt like the end of the world, only for it to lead to something far greater. "You never know what's around the corner," Ellen said with a smile. "Sometimes, bad things happen so good things can follow." As the interview wrapped up, Ellen announced one last surprise. Turning to Sarah, she said, "We've partnered with MrBeast to give you a gift that will truly change your future." A giant screen behind them lit up, displaying a rendering of a brand new café. "This is yours," Ellen continued. "A fully funded coffee shop in your hometown, designed and built just for you. All you have to do is run it." Sarah burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. She couldn't believe it. In less than a week, she'd gone from being unemployed to owning her very own business, a dream she'd buried long ago because it seemed impossible. But just as the applause began to die down, MrBeast appeared on stage, holding a microphone. He looked directly at Sarah and said, "There's one more thing I need to tell you." Her stomach tightened. What could possibly come next? Sarah stared at MrBeast, her heart pounding in her chest. What could he possibly say after everything that had already happened? The audience leaned forward in their seats, buzzing with anticipation. Even Ellen raised an eyebrow, clearly curious about what was coming next. MrBeast took a deep breath, then smiled. "Sarah, you've inspired millions of people around the world this week, including me. Your story proves that kindness doesn't go unnoticed, even when it feels like no one's watching. But here's the thing." He paused for dramatic effect, letting the tension build. "Your journey isn't over yet." The screen behind them flickered to life again, showing a series of images, a bustling city skyline, a crowded concert venue, and finally a massive stage, set up in the middle of Times Square. "What you're looking at," MrBeast continued, "is the beginning of something huge, something I've been working on for months, and I want you to be part of it." Sarah's mind raced. "Part of what?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. MrBeast grinned. "You'll find out soon enough, but first there's one last surprise waiting for you back home." Before Sarah could respond, the camera cut to black. The screen displayed a message in bold white letters, "To be continued." As the credits rolled, viewers were left wondering what awaited Sarah back in her hometown. Would she discover another twist in her already unbelievable journey? And what exactly did MrBeast mean by something huge? One thing was certain, Sarah's life would never be the same again. From losing her job to becoming an inspiration for millions, she's shown us all that kindness truly does have the power to change lives, including our own. But what happens next? What's waiting for her back home? And what exactly is MrBeast planning in Times Square? If you want to find out, hit that subscribe button right now, so you don't miss the next chapter of Sarah's incredible journey. Trust me, you won't believe where this story goes next. And hey, while you're at it, leave a comment below and tell me, what would you do if someone like MrBeast walked into your life tomorrow? Would you help them without expecting anything in return? Let's talk about it in the comments. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes, being kind really does come back around in ways you could never imagine. See you in the next video.